I think this was 1955 or somewhere around there.
All right, good morning, everybody. Today is Daf Pei and Pei Aleph. Today's Pei Aleph, yesterday's Pei. We left off at Daf Pei, the top of the Mishnah, very first word, very first line, Naya Mishnah, and away we go. A person goes ahead, he rents a cow for the purposes of plowing up in the mountains, which has rocky terrain, and he ends up going and plowing in a softer valley. So even if the plow goes ahead and let's say the blades or whatever break, so he's putter because he would have permission to do on a rockier terrain. If he does something less rocky and it breaks that way, so certainly he's putter. However, if he rents it for babika v'charish bahar, but he plows it in a rockier place in the mountains, so if it breaks, then a kankan chayiv. Then if the plow breaks, then he's chayiv because once again he did something that was more than he said he was going to do. He was only supposed to go ahead and plow in a valley. That's what the rental agreement was, and he took it into the mountains, which is potentially more damaging. Mm-hmm. And similarly, ladush b'kidnias, if he went there to go ahead and thresh in the legumes or the beans, right? V'dash b'tvua. So those are very slippery when they get smashed. And grains are not as much, and he goes and threshes grains, and then the animal slips and gets injured, so he's potter. However, ladush b'tvua, if he had permission to go ahead and thresh in the tvua, the dash bikini, so then he ends up thrashing in something which is slipperier, and then it falls and gets injured. Then he's chayiv kidneys mechalekas because the kidneys is slipperier. Zok the Gemara speaking of breaking a plow, so let's say they don't go ahead and differentiate or veer off what they agreed to do, and the plow breaks. So they rented the plow. So the person, normally a plow, there's two people doing it. There's a person who's leading it, steering in the front of where it goes, and the other person is sort of pushing down the blade. And so the combination of the two. So who's the one who erred? So Amar Papa Dinakid Parsha Mishalim, the one who basically is steering it, he's the one, he shouldn't have taken that area. No, the one who's pushing down on the blade. And that the person he's pays the hilchasa denakit mana misham. The halach is that the one who was in charge of the what's it called the plow at the end, he is the one who pays. However, the duchta and mechaska gunderai tavai misham. However, it's a known place, it's rocky terrain, and the guy steered it there, and the other guy pushed down on the plow. Then both of them are chayiv together. Fine. Rabbi Yechanan around a quarter of the way down, and pay him at Aleph. Rabbi Yechanan hamaycher parla chavero. Person who goes ahead and sells a car to his friend, Rabbi Parza in the Genechas heat, Nishkenas heat, Abantes heat, Ravenetzes heat. He says, this animal, right, that I'm selling to you, right, it gores, it bites, it kicks, it crouches down to damage. He tells him all the things that are wrong with it. V'haya bum mumecha, and it turns out that one of them was true, but three of them taka were not true. V'safa ben amumin, right? Harezeh megaftos, right? And so basically, he said them all together, and in other words, that he realized that one of the he tested the animal. The animal is not a biting animal, so he thought that since the animal wasn't biting, maybe everything he was telling him was a lie. But one of them taka were true, right? Taka did it was a kicking animal or a goring animal, whatever one of those taka. So that's a melech tos. Why? Because he was told something. He thought the owner, the guy was selling it, wasn't telling the truth because some of them didn't really, were not true. So he thought all of them weren't true, and it turns out some of them were true. But it's a melech tos because he didn't know. He says mumzel mumacher. If he tells him, okay, this animal, let's say, bites and it has another mum. And then it turns out it did bite, right? And there was another mum, it did gore, but it didn't do the others. That's not a melech tos because he told him he could have checked it out that it bit and Taka did bite. And therefore, and once again, so since he should have known in this case, because that which he was told was true, so therefore he was basically told what he was buying, and therefore, he was not fooled at all. And therefore, it's a good, valid sale. He doesn't have any claims to the seller. And Tani Rabbi Yachid learned Hamaycher Shivcha Lechavero, one who goes ahead and he sells a shivcha to his friend. Right, this shivcha, she is a shaita. She's deranged. She's epilepsy. She's meshuga. Right. He v'haya mumechad. Right. And now it's and taka. One of them were true, but some ben amumi, but amongst the others. And now he saw that taka she didn't have epilepsy, so he figured that she wasn't crazy. And it turns out she was crazy. That's a mekaktos because once again he said he tested one of them and Shitaka didn't have that moon, so therefore he thought maybe all of them were made up. So therefore he could have a claim against the seller. However, let's say he says, okay, she has epilepsy and she also has another moon. And then he goes ahead and he doesn't test it. Then all of a sudden he's upset that she's crazy. And it's a megachtos. It's not a megachtos. Why? Because he's said, look, he told you the truth about the epilepsy, and therefore he told you the truth about the other moon, and you accepted it and continued with the sale. And Amar le Ravacha the Rav Ravashi, Hayuba kol mumu halumau. Let's say the guy told you he had all these mumim, and they're talking true, and then all of a sudden the person's like, you know what, I can't deal with it. But he was warned up front. Even though the fact that the guy said, okay, I could deal with the fact that she's a little crazy, who isn't crazy, or he thought that maybe he could deal with it, but if he was warned up front, then too bad, you accepted it, you were told, and therefore you are chayiv. Is it warm here or is it me? I'm just gonna just turn the fan on. Just seems like stuff. I don't know, circulation. Air conditioner's loud though. No, let's see. Is that button there? Let's see if that works. It's the light. All right, I got the light. All right, let's see the other one. Maybe the other ones. Middle. You want the middle? Maybe I don't know. Where's it from? How you see again? Yeah. All right, no big deal. We'll get him. We can just turn the AC. That's fine. All right.
I'm coming. Don't worry.
Yeah. All right. Next Mishnah. All right. Mishnah says, "Haseicher sachamar lahavi aleh chitin vehavi aleh sarin." So one who goes ahead and rents a donkey to go ahead and bring wheat, and then it turns out he brings barley. Okay. So we're going to talk. We're going to get into the discussions. Actually, Machlokes how to learn this Mishnah. So we'll talk about a lesach. A lesach is a half of kav. A kav is 30 sa. So a lesach is going to be 15 sa. Okay. Now, there's a certain amount of which is a volume, right? So a certain amount of he says I'm going to go ahead and take a sa, right? A volume, 15 sa of wheat, right? Which let's say weighs 20 pounds. And instead, he goes ahead and he takes barley. Okay, now a lesach of barley weighs 18 pounds, so it's lighter. All right, it's the same size, but it's lighter. And then he does damage, so he's chayiv. Why is that? So we'll see according to one of the shitas. It's because he goes ahead and he says, "Oh, I was allowed to go ahead and load it right with 20 pounds of wheat. So now I'm going to go ahead and take the same volume in barley, which is 18 pounds, and add a little bit, so it'll be 20." So he's chayiv in such a case. And tvua, if he goes ahead and he contracts to go ahead and use your donkey to go ahead and carry tvua and grades behavior, allowed to have, and he goes ahead and brings straw, which is even lighter. So chayiv mipnei she'nefa kosher kamasui. He goes ahead and brings straw. We'll do the same example as 18 pounds, and then therefore you go to a straw, which is 16 pounds, so he added 2 more, and therefore he's chayiv. Why? Because we'll say over here that the bulk is just as damaging to the animal as the weight. In other words, that even though the weight is the same, right? Like, for example, of 20 pounds of wheat versus 20 pounds of barley, right? But the bulk is bigger because you got to add from the 18 pounds of barley. So it's much, I guess, the bulkiness is much bigger. That's the reason why it's chayiv, because even though he has the proper weight, he didn't have the proper bulkiness, and therefore you added bulk, and therefore that was too difficult on the animal. Lavi lesach chitin vehevi lesach sarin. If he goes ahead and contracts to go ahead and bring a lesach of wheat, and then he brings a lesach of barley, then he's pater. then he's pater. If it's the same amount of lesach, right? If he adds to that which he carried, right? Therefore, he is chayiv. And Kama Yosef, and how much you want to go ahead and add Amasav Yechat to be chayiv? So simple. So I'm Mishum Meir saw legamo. It's a full saw comes to a camel, and shloish kavin and 3 kav when it comes to a chamor. Now a kav is half a saw, right? Or excuse me, 6 kav is a saw. So therefore 3 kav is a half a saw. So basically the amount is, if he was supposed to carry 15, right? And he carried more than 15 and a half, then it's considered to be chayav. We'll soon see that case, but it's 1/30th. Right? So that was the amount of what you add to 1/30th. Therefore, now then there's damage to the animal, therefore you're chayav. We're on Peyam at Aleph. So Abaye Omar Kasha Kamasui Tanat. So Abaye says our understanding that it's Kasha to Kamasui Tanat, and Rav Omar Kasha Limasui. And Rav says no, it's Kasha Limasui for the carrying. Let's see what's going on here. So Tanat. So Abaye Omar Kasha Kamasui Tanat Nafcha Ki Takala V'Maisiv Shleisha Kavin Chai. So he says that the bulk is like a weight, right? The bulk is like a weight, and therefore, when the bulk is like a weight, and therefore, so according to Abaye, once you go ahead and you add a bulkiness, so therefore that's damaging just like weight. And therefore, if you go ahead and you add 3, then you're chayiv. And Rav Omar, kosher l'masui takol ki takol v'nafcha havi tosefes. So he says like this: no, that even if the weight is like the weight, and therefore if there's bulkiness, so therefore the bulkiness is anything extra. So now, as according to Rava, that which we say that he carried one versus the other, you can't even add the extra weight, right? You can't even add any extra weight to the bulkiness. So the bulkiness is in the contract just like the weight, and therefore if the bulkiness, which a lesach has a certain amount of bulkiness, so even though your bulk is going to be lighter, even if I add weight to the bulkiness in order to make it what originally was contracted, you can't do that. So there's 2 factors according to Rava, right? According to Abaye, right, the number one thing is the weight, right? And as long as the weight is the same, it's okay. And that if you get to the weight, but it's bulkier, then it's a problem. But according to Rava, even if the weight is less, but it's bulkier, then it's a problem. So Tanan, so we learned in the Mishnah said, let's look at the next example. Right? So he said, if you contract to go ahead and bring wheat, a lesach of wheat, and then you bring a lesach of soy, which is lighter than your pater. And if you go ahead and add to a chayiv, so my lav shloshes kavim is not 3 kav, right? So and therefore we see that you can't add anything. So he says lo, so it means no, you're adding a so, which is 1/15 upon the 15th. Gemara says right. So you can add 3 to chamer. So achi kamar heiklo shani chitin behavior. No, going to a different case. Heiklo shani. I know. Where he says, I'm going to go ahead and take a lesson of chitin. Behavi chitin and taka brings wheat. Or sorry, he says, I'm going to go ahead and bring barley. Behavi sorry brings barley. How much can you go ahead and bring? So simple saying, and in that case, when it's the same amount, then it goes back to 1/30. So in other words, the Rav understands it's going on a different case. It's not explaining the ratio. Rather, it's a different case of when you do the contract amount, then you can't add more than 1/15. However, if it's you're changing what you said you're going to bring, then you can't go ahead and veer off that. So Toshma, come listen, bottom line, lahavi lesach chitin vehevi. If a person goes ahead, he's contracted to go ahead and bring a lesach of wheat, vehevi, and then he goes ahead and brings shesres sarin, and he brings 16 sarin. So he's supposed to bring 15, and he brings 16, right? So he added 1/15. So he is chayiv. So he's chayiv mash. Shloishes kav and pater. Sounds like only because that does 3 kav, which is 1/3. Then he's pater. So according to Abaye, you're allowed to go ahead and bring. You be chayiv if you brought an extra amount, because according to Abaye in this case, right, you can't go ahead and add to it. So our answer is We're talking about a case of some area which was leveled. In other words, if something was leveled, then automatically it's it's not really above. Therefore, you put a less achana when they level off, it's actually even less than that. So therefore, when you add on, you're really not adding on to a true. It doesn't become 15 to 16. Rather, it only comes to 15 and 15 and a half. And therefore, we said that 1/30th is considered to be negligible, and therefore one would not be chayiv for that. So Tan Rabbanan have like Kosef. So you have a person, you pay a person to go ahead and transport for you, and right, the carrier. So the amount you contract a certain amount. If you add an extra kav, then the guy can sue for damages. If you you loaded him up too much. So adriv la riva, and adriv is like a lesef or half a kur for an ariva for a small boat, and kur lasvina, and a regular boat is for a kur, and shleish is kurin leborni gedola, and 3 kur for a ship, right? So different types of boats. So Amar Kasef. So let's look at the first case. So he said a kav the kasef for a carrier, a guy to go ahead and carry it. So it's only be you can only add a kav extra. Remember, a kav is 1/6 of a saw. So I understand if it's too heavy for bardasu lishtek. I understand if it's too heavy for him, so let him throw it down and say something, right? He didn't say anything, so it seemed like he accepted it. So what do you want? He's a bardas. I overloaded an animal. I overloaded a person. The guy says too heavy. No, he put it on him, but then he got collapsed immediately, and therefore time to go ahead and throw it off and tell you it was too heavy. And Rav Amar alter, or even if it didn't go ahead and get damaged immediately, like we're not talking about getting damaged. Rather, we're talking about that if you add more than a kav, he can turn around and say, you know what, you owe me extra money for carrying this, right? If it was just less than a kav, then he doesn't really have a right to say, it's overweight. But once it's officially a kav over, then it's overweight. And Rav Ashi Amar, Rav Ashi says, maybe though that the guy, thought, oh, maybe I just, I felt it was heavy, but I thought maybe I was sick, I was weak, I didn't have my breakfast. And therefore, that's the reason why it felt so heavy. And little did I know, you overloaded it by more than a kav, and that's why I hurt my knee, and now I'm suing you.
Chariots.
He didn't use chariots. And kur l'sfina, and we said a kur for a sfina, and shleishis kur, and then 3 kur for lebrani gedola. For a ship, if you overload these amounts, then and there's damages, you're chayiv. So Amarav Papa, so shvamina, so sfinos bas tlas and kur. So we learn from over here that a regular sfina can go ahead and carry 30 kur, right? Because an overload, we said the ratio is 1/30th. If the overload amount is 1 kur, so therefore, then the amount that should carry is 30 kur. So when one goes ahead and does, so the business transactions wants to go ahead and buy a ship, standard ship should be able to go ahead and carry at least 30 kur. Mm-hmm. All right, now you Mishnah on Pei Amud Beis. Oh, yeah. When you get time, you forgot that fan. Well, it's stuffy there, right? Isn't it a little stuffy now? All right, see, that's fine. Just this is quieter. Let's see if there's a. All right, Mishnah. Alan, you're hoping he figures out it doesn't figure it out. Yeah, okay, good. Fine, all right. All umnim, referring to kablanos. Let's say right. I go to who's the shoemaker Joe? What's the show Joe? Yeah, what's the guy's name? Joseph the shoemaker, whatever it is. Joseph. Right. Yeah. So you bring it in to go ahead and get your shoes polished, right? So now he finishes it, right? So he is considered to be a shomer sacher. Now remember, he finishes it on Sunday, whatever it is, right? And we'll soon discuss the scenario. But now, once the shoes are in the shop, right? He doesn't have it anymore. He doesn't need it, right? Because he already finished doing the work. So I'm supposed to pick it up. So he's watching shkoyach, he's watching it for me until I go ahead and get it. So what type of responsibility, shmira, level of shmira does he have? So he's a shemer sach. The chulan shamru. Tall at shacha. But if he calls me or he sees me, bumps into me, Joseph sees me right outside his store, and he says, Tall at shacha, take yours, behavi mos, so they bring my money, then he's a shemer chim. Now he has reduced his level. He's told me, pick up your item, pay me. Now he's basically saying, pick up your item, meaning I don't really don't want to watch this anymore, right? So he's a shemer chim, right? So therefore, he's a shemer chim at that point. He's not responsible for Gneva Aveda. He's only responsible for if he's, an einus. Excuse me, if he is negligent, right? It's cold in there. He needs a fire. He throws my shoes in the fire to add to the fire. Now he's chai, right? So he's shemer chim. So another case. Let's say I say, hey, do me a favor. You watch my garden, and then I'll watch yours. So shemer sachar, the person's a shemer sachar, even though he's not physically getting paid. But my payment is you're watching my stuff when I need. So therefore, he is considered to be a paid watchman, and therefore he'd be chayiv v'gidei. Shamar levi. So let's say I say, hey, do me a favor. Can you watch my garden? Or let's say, can you watch my baseball mitts? Right? Put it in front of me. Shemer chinam. He's a shemer chinam. In other words, him saying put in front of me is basically giving, letting him know that I will watch it. In other words, if someone says, hey, can you watch my glove? Right? I wouldn't say put it in front of me. If I didn't want to do it, I would say no. Right? Or I wouldn't answer. But once I say put in front of me, it means I put it in front of me and I will watch it. The person goes and he lends somebody alamashka, right? So he lends somebody, and it's on a collateral, right? So Yigal lends me money. He doesn't trust me, so he takes my tefillin, right? So he's a shemer sachar. He's a shemer sachar because, right, he's getting rewarded by the fact that he's going to get his money back. And then give me this. So now he sort of benefits by watching my tefillin because that is his security for the loan. If he went and he lent him money, then he is considered to be a shemer chinam, right? So and no, that is just he's not really benefiting from. He's a shemer chinam. However, it's a case of havil peiros. But let's say it was a case of where one was able to go ahead, and we just saw the previous parak. You can't really lend, fruits for fruits. But let's say one where he does go ahead and lend fruits for fruits in a permissible situation. Havil peiros. Shemer sachar. If Yigal lends me fruits, then he's benefiting. Why? Because his fruits are going to go bad. By the fact that I'm taking the fruits now, and then I'll pay back in 2 weeks when he can go ahead and use the fruits. So therefore, he does benefit. Therefore, since he's benefiting from that, and therefore he's benefiting from the loan itself, so therefore he's considered to be shemer sachar. And Avashal Aimer, Russia, let's say Yigal lends me, he lends me money, $100, and a poor person, and he holds my tefillin. So either you can hold out to my tefillin, or every day you can actually rent out the tefillin for $5 a day, right? So if he goes ahead and rents it out for $5 a day for 20 days, he can actually make back his $100. And therefore, right, I don't have to pay him back, right? Because he got his $20 or his $100 from using my tefillin. So therefore, it's like Meishi Aveda. The ani wouldn't have been able to pay back the loan or whatever it was. So Yigal was able to go ahead and do a little business with the mashkan, and therefore he was like Meishi Aveda, and therefore he can go ahead and basically return the object once he makes all his money back. Fine. That was the end of the Mishnah. All right, Zak the Gemara. Leiba masnisim delikra meir. Let's say our Mishnah is like a mayor. The tiny we're little rice. Say here, Kates and Mishnah. So the Torah does discuss a shel, a borrower, a paid watchman. Discusses a paid watchman, a borrower, and shemer sachar, and a what's it called, and a shel. However, a renter does not really identify. So, Seicher, Kates, and Mishalim, how does a renter, what are his obligations for Shmir? He is a Shemer Chinam, right? In other words, he pays for it. So, therefore, he's like a Shemer Chinam. He's watching it for free. And therefore, Shemer Chinam is potter for a Greiv Veder. He's the Shemer Sachar. So our Mishnah seems to say, right, that the Umnan, right, that it's like he's getting paid. So therefore, he'd be so. So our Mishnah seems to say that he called it Shomer Sacher, and this seems and Rabbi Meir would say it's the Shomer Chinam. So why says a few time Rabbi Meir? Maybe say that Rabbi Meir.
This is referring to he's watching the thing that he's renting.
Well, while it's in his possession, right?
So he's watching something else.
No, the item,
The
right?
item itself.
Yes, right. The item itself. In other words, he has the animal, but he's not using the animal, right? Throughout the schirus, right?
Okay.
So
he's a shomer chinam.
So it's machlokes. So by a seicher, right, a renter, the stav machlokes. This is in general, right? One who goes ahead and rents, right? So one says you rent an animal, you're shomer. Rabbi Meir says you're a shomer chinam, right? And you're pater from gneva veda. And Rabbi Yehuda says you're shomer sachar, you're chai for gneva veda, right? In the case of a renter. So now, what's the case? So maybe it's like Rav Meir. Maybe Rav Meir would agree in our case, right? That the guy is a shomer sacher. So what is this extra? So why is this considered to be a shomer chinam in the case of renting? Like it's like a favor that he's doing from the owner. Right? So he says no. Maybe in this case, right, by the fact that for the he could have gone to any shoemaker, but by the fact that I went to this shoemaker, now that's the reason why you're shomer sacher. So one says, "Yachi sechenami," because the second, "Hayana the kashavi kuliyamo magir ledu gide havi ele shomer sacher." Well, okay, I could have rented from anybody, so you use the same you can use the same logic, right? So. Ella, filo tamer Rami, can say like Rameir, but hi, I know the call you like Fursa, have you lost Shomer Sacher? So he says, no, maybe he paid him a little extra, right? That since he went ahead and he paid the Joseph a little extra, so therefore now basically do me good a return to be a Shomer Sacher. You agree? It says no, Sechenami, you lost the delay Shavile Tveport. Maybe he paid a little bit extra rent, and therefore since I paid a little right, I discounted a little bit of the rent. So therefore, Mr. Renter, you're enjoying, right, my animal. Therefore, be a shomer sacher for me. So feel the tamer of mayor, bahaya na, make it say mayor. Feel bahaya na, the top agra, the lay boy, the mayor, lemifek azuza havila shomer sacher. You say this? No. He's a shomer sacher, the Joseph, right, the shoemaker. Why? Because by the fact is that he's holding on my shoes, he benefits by not having to run after me to get paid the $50 for polishing the shoes. Right? So by the fact that he's holding on to it, he's rewarded by the fact that he's holding on to it because he doesn't have to go ahead and chase me down for the money. So therefore, even our mayor would say in our case that perhaps it could be a shomer sacher. Or Iboy Sema, or you say, no, it's like the opposite of the switch rate of Rabbi Avua, where he said the Tani Seicher case of a Shalim, how does he go ahead and pay Rabbi Meir because shomer sacher, he is a shomer sacher. And therefore, they would stem with their Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda because shomer chinam. He'd be like a shomer chinam. The chulan shiamru. All these cases we say tola shachat. Take your shoes back. The heavy mayus and also bring me my money. Shomer chinam. All these cases, he's showing he is a shomer chinam. Right? He's no longer. He's watching for free. Right? He hasn't. Right? All of responsibility. He's done with the shoes. Now you pick him up. So Tanan Hasam Aimer Lo Shalach. So let's say a bower says, send me the animal. All right. So I am bowering Eddie's camel. And I say, send it to me, the shalcha, and Eddie sends it with Avrami to bring it to me, and sending umesa, and it dies, then I am chayiv. Once I say shalach, send it to me, I basically tell him I want my bowering to start. Even though it hasn't reached my hands yet, it's still with the shaliach, with Avrami. Nevertheless, I am chayiv because I told him. So to when I'm done with the animal, I call up Eddie. I say, hey, thank you so much for allowing me to use the camel. So Eddie says, okay, send it back. So too, something happens. Once Eddie says, send it back, basically it's on him. It's considered to be returned, even though it never actually reached Eddie's, reached Eddie. And we're only talking about if this is during the length of loan. I'm supposed to do it for 30 days, within 30 days. But if it was after the 30 days, right? Then we say, such a case, he is putter, even if I still have it. I was about it for 30 days, but it wasn't returned yet, right? Then I am no longer the shayla in such a case. So Mesiv Rav Nachman Bar Papa v'chulan shemer tola shechave v'imaj shemer china. Understand? Let's look at our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says you send your shoes to Joseph, right? And then he calls you up and says, "Take yours away and bring your money." Now he's a shemer china, right? Now it's only when he tells me, "Pick up your shoes and bring my money." That's when he's a shemer china. Mashma. If he doesn't say anything, right? But if he just finished it, right? He doesn't say pick up your shoes yet. He's still a shomer sachar, even though, right? Now, even though his kablanus has ended, right? We just said before, once the shayla is ended, it's ready now back in the owner's responsibility, and therefore the shayla is pater, right? Or he's not the shomer, right? He's not considered to be a shayla anymore. So in our case, it should go right. It should go back automatically. Why do you have to wait for him to say, "Take yours" to his shmira? Just say once he's done, his kabbanis is done, just like the shayla is done.
It's strange because think about Joseph.
Yeah.
Grab your shoes. And he's done. Calls you. Okay, it's ready. He's going to pick it up. 2 years later, you still pick it up, and now something happens to it. He should be responsible. I don't want it anymore. It's yours. Actually, not responsible at all.
Who should not be?
Joseph, because I never picked it up.
Well, that's what they're saying.
No, he's saying you're shamachina, which means you still be chayav of negligence. I'm saying you shouldn't be chayav of anything.
So
so always have a sign not responsible for over 30 years.
Right. So actually, he has that right. So we'll discuss the case in terms of that, right? Because the truth is, right, I was actually thinking about this question, right? Because you're really chayav for negligence. Now, so negligence, you're also chayav, even if you're not a shomer, you're chayav for damages, right? In other words, like I said before, let's say it was cold and I took shoes and I threw in the fire, right? So I'll be chayav even if it wasn't a shomer, right? That'd be chayav because I was, damaging someone's, right? So, but over here, it would be a case of right that where he was negligent. But in other words, let's say he walks away, right? He leaves the shop unlocked, right? He walks away, leaves the shop unlocked, and someone comes in and it was completely negligent, right? So this case, he would still be chayav because the fact that he originally took it, the Torah's shmira. So now he's still at least a shemer china, even though right. But we'll soon see cases of where maybe the shmira doesn't even start, but where never it's going to start, we'll soon see that that sort of continues. So but stop finishing it. He's still a shemer sachar. Just the expiration of his period doesn't do anything, right? So the Gemara answer is no. The Gemara says no, that's not true. Most shemer sachar. No, we're only saying when he says take yours, right, and then pay me, then he's a shemer china. But if he says no, the opposite. If he says go bring my money and then take yours, then that would exclude that. That's the case. Is a shemer sacher. Why? Because then he doesn't want to get paid and then leave it. He wants to hold on to the shoes until he gets paid, right? But if he says pay me first, right, pay me and then pick up your shoes, so then it sounds like he doesn't even want to wash the shoes. He's a shemer china. He doesn't benefit by watching onto the shoes. So what are you saying? You're suggesting that if he just finished it stam, what? He's a shemer china, right? Just in the case of sheila, when it's over, it's over. So why didn't teach the case of when he told them take your item and then bring you my money? He's a shemer china. Just say in case of where he told them, where he says where he finished the work, right? And certainly the case of where he says take yours and then pay me. The answer is no. No, take yours, eat shichle. So good. Like Alan just said, don't step out, Alan, real quick. You might think you might think that the chiddush is that he might not even be a shemer chinam. He doesn't want it all. He still is a shemer chinam in this case because he took on the shmir. Now you can do it. All right. I think that so they have a different version of Nachman Papa. We also have V'chulan Sheyamru Tola Shacha V'Hevi Mos. All the cases he says, take your money, take your object, and then bring my money. Then he's a shemer chinam. So my laugh, what didn't so too. that also if he just finishes it, also he's also considered to be a Shomer Chinam. Gemara says no, no. Once he tells them take yours, now he's ending his Shomer Sachar and it turns into Shomer Chinam. But maybe if he just finishes it, then maybe he would not be chayiv. Fine. So Huna Mar Bar Meimar Kamei. So he said, Rami Masnis. So he took these two cases and he threw them together, right? He made a contradiction of Mashani, right? And he also answered. He says, Tanan 1, Mishnah says, one case it says, if he tells him, go ahead and take yours and then bring me my money, then he's a Shemer Chinam. Remember, the key is that he says, take yours, right? First. And then he says, bring my money. In other words, he's not using these shoes as a way to get paid. What then? And so too, the Gemara he also calls him up and says, I finished, and hangs it up, right? So if I finish, but just if I finish is mashma that I'm no longer a Shomer Sachar, I'm now a Shomer Chinam.
He wasn't paid yet. He finished his job, but he wasn't paid.
Right.
For his job.
Right. Yes, and he'll get paid another time. But me having the shoes, right, me having the shoes is no big deal.
But it's
So
just
generous.
What?
That's the instrument to keep the shoes in order to get his payment.
So, but our Mishnah is saying when he says, "Take your shoes
Yes.
and bring my money," right?
I mean,
Smashma that you take your shoes first. I'm not holding on to the shoes in order to get paid. I'm not using as collateral to get paid. Therefore, I get zero benefit. I'm getting zero benefit because I'm telling you,
in other words,
pick it up. Even if he picked them up, he didn't have to pay me yet. I mean, I want to get paid, but I wasn't going to not give him the shoes if he didn't pay me. Because I said, Tola Shachar, take yours and then pay me. Right? So over here, right? So too in this case, we'll say that, once he says that he's a Shomer Chinam, so too if he just says, I finished. I'm basically, he's no longer Shomer Sachar.
Oh, when he
Was it?
Plus another insert if he takes the shoes and doesn't.
Right, so that's another, right? The other guy, right? For not paying him, right? Withholding payment.
Okay, yeah. When you tell him Shomer Chinam, then it works. What we say.
Yeah. So goes to Ivra Minu, but because Shalach v'Shachal Mesa. Right, when he tells him, okay, send it, and he sent it, he's chayiv v'chein b'shashem zero, right? And so too when he returns it, right? In other words, if he doesn't go ahead and just when it's over, so we say, even though they reached him yet, in that case, when he tells him to go ahead and send it, then it's considered only then is he not responsible. Like we said earlier, only during Yemei Shilasa, then he has to give permission to go ahead and send it back. But after the Yemei Shilasa, then he doesn't have to say send it back. He can just send it back because then once again, once it automatically ends, or once the Sheila ends, then it's already considered I'm no longer the Shemer Chinam, and now even though I'm not a good bower because I didn't return it, nevertheless my bowering is over. Iboilu, a question was raised. So Pater Mishay v'Chayiv Shomer Sachar. Do we say right that he is Pater from being a bower and now he's a Shomer Sachar? In other words, we say that the bower is no longer Chayiv; he's Pater. So what does it mean? What type of Pater? Now remember, Sheil has the most responsibility, right? So is he Pater? He's no longer Sheil, but he's still considered to be like a Shomer Sachar, like someone who is getting the reward. And now he's also not using Shomer Sachar like a Shomer Chinam. Some remain. We start Pater Mishay v'Chayiv Shomer Sachar. Since he got enough from bowering, therefore, at the very least, he can have the responsibility of a Shomer Sachar. So Tani Kvasi the Meimar, we have Brisa in support of a Meimar. Halokeh Kalim Beis Uman, one who goes ahead and purchases Kalim from a Beis Uman, the Shagla, the Beis Chamav, in order to go ahead and send it to his father-in-law's house. If my father-in-law wants, I'm going to go ahead and buy it from you. And if not, I still got a little bit of benefit from you. In other words, even though, because my share saw, I'm very generous, I like to give him gifts. So I bought goodwill, right? So the wares are $100, but the goodwill is $20. So therefore, I'm going to pay you something, right? And if I don't, I'm going to return you the item, but I'll still pay you $20. And what happens, obviously, wouldn't be the case if it wasn't Finansu. And there was an Ines and something happened. So Balicha Chayiv, if it's on the way there where he could have go ahead and sold it, then he's Chayiv. The Chazira, but when he's returning it, then he's putter, because really I was on the way back, I was going to return it to the owner, who is going to be the one who's going to benefit me, because he is like a paid shamer, right? And therefore he'd be putter in this case. And the person went ahead and he sold wine to his friends. I'm going to go ahead and take it to a certain place, and he's Zivina Mutav, and I'm going to go ahead and if I sell there, great. And if you lie, if not, I'm going to go ahead and return it to you. So he's davening. So he went and he did not go ahead and was not able to sell it. And when he on his way back, this happens. He says he is chayiv to go ahead and pay. Now, the previous case we said potter, he's chayiv. I say, but when it's returning it for the benefit of the owner and not for the benefit of the person who borrowed it. So it should be potter. Why is he chayiv on the way back for the wines? Right? Over there says maybe a nice car. So I'm like, Chazar dahai halichahi. No. Even the Chazara returning it, even on the way back to the original owner, is like a person who is on the way to his destination to sell. My time, or what's the reason? Svaru, right? His whole thing was that he was trying to sell it. So even if he went to the town to sell it and nobody bought it over there, if he was returning it to bring it back to the original owner, so such a person, right, if he found a buyer 2 minutes before he was going to return it, he would have sold it. So his entire trip was considered to be to find a buyer. So therefore, even if he found a buyer the last second, so that wasn't for the purposes of bringing it back to the original owner. Rather, the purpose was to sell it, and he could have found a buyer even b'chazara. Therefore, the chazara is considered to be like halicha, and therefore that is the reason why he is chayiv. Fine. Next case. You okay there? We're good? All right. Covers? Yeah. So Shamali. Not that. So he says, the guy says, you watch for me, I'll watch for you. He is considered to be a Shomer Safar. Oh, Gemara says, why? He's a paid watchman, and therefore he's chayiv like Geneva Veda. Gemara says, Shmira B'Alim. Shmira B'Alim. Now, Shmira B'Alim is a case of where one who goes ahead and let's say I borrow an object and I borrow your boat. Let's say I borrow your boat or whatever. That was not a good example. I borrow your plow, right? And you want to go ahead and work the plow. So therefore, since I am borrowing it, but the owner is with me, then I'm putter. Even though I'm borrowing it, right?
Right.
But there's a case of Shmira B'Alim.
Right.
And since the owner is with me,
Right.
and I didn't do anything really wrong, whatever it was, then I'm putter. So why am I considered to be a Shomer Sachar, right? If I watch for you, you watch for me.
How can we Shomer Sachar?
We're each watching. It's like I'm working with you. If I'm working with you, I should be putter. Shmira B'Alim. No, it wasn't taking place simultaneously. He wasn't with him. One of them took place on Monday, and the other one took place on Tuesday. So therefore, we weren't together.
But it physically is in another place, despite the bite next to it. It's just another position, another place. By being in another place, he's not.
Right. So
we're saying physically.
Right. So we're probably working in a scenario where it was, let's say, it was land, and the land was the same area. So if it was the same. Different places, they couldn't say that. So that's why I said today and tomorrow, but it's not considered to be Shmira B'Alim. They weren't doing it simultaneously and therefore wasn't together. I won't say the word simultaneously, it wasn't together at the same time. Therefore, since it wasn't that, it doesn't qualify as Shmira B'Alim. Or he said, and be some property, and then I'll lend you mine. Or if he says, you watch for me, and then I'll lend you, or he sheleni, or lend me, and I'll watch and I'll watch for you. Kulan nosu shomer sachar zelzen. Each one is a shomer sachar because I'm watching your land either because I'm getting to borrow something in return, or because I'm getting you to watch something for me in return, and therefore it's like a payment, and therefore I'm considered to be shomer sachar, and therefore I'll be chayiv. Once again, the Gemara says, So Rav Papa, now we're talking about it says, but he does it, for him one day and not the other day, right? Hanu Aloy, right? These people that sold oihos, right? Oil, right? As Rashi says, right? We're talking about people they sold like as aloe or something like that was used for laundry detergent. So they were going there, they were makri. So Hanu Aloy, the call Yoima Havi Apele Chaminai, right? Every day, one of them would go ahead and make lunch for the others. He would go ahead and bake for the others. How are you? I remember they said to one of them, Zeal off and line, go ahead and bake for us. Samalu. So Nichali Gimlai, go ahead and watch my coat. And also, meanwhile, so Pashuba, they were negligent and it was stolen. So also coming to Papa, he said, Chayvinu, they're chayiv to go ahead and buy him a new coat. Summer later, Papa, Yamai, Shiba Bailani. Isn't Shiba Bailam? No, he was like working for them, but he was there, right? He was there baking the bread, and they were there, and they were negligent. But since he was working there, that should be Shmir Bailam, right? And therefore, Shiba Bailam should be Potter. So Rav Papa, he was embarrassed. Right. However, the Sev Igla Milsa Dawishata Shikra Havi Koshasi. Right. He says no, but during that time, right, in other words, that he was drinking a cold one, right? He was drinking. Therefore, he did not start going ahead and baking the bread yet. And therefore, since he wasn't baking the bread, he wasn't considered to be working for them. And since he wasn't working for them, therefore they are responsible for their negligence. It was not considered to be Shmir Bailam. So this is what called Shmir Bailam Potter.
The guy is doing a job, and the other guy leaves and says, "Just wash my coat." But that wasn't what he was being paid for.
No, but he was told, "You go ahead and
just show me,
you go ahead and bake bread for us." So since bake bread for us, he was supposed to make bread for everybody, right? So therefore, it was like he was working for everybody. So and he was still there. So l'chayra, it's Shmir Bailam, right? Because he was employed he was employed and his object was there. So therefore, that should qualify as a case of Shmir Bailam.
So he's a shomer chino because that's not what he's being paid for.
Who's the shomer chino? Today it was
the baker.
No. I'm sorry. There was a bunch of guys. There were a bunch of merchants selling laundry detergent. Okay. Every day, one person would bake for everybody else. They would make lunch. I told them, "You make lunch for today." He says, "Oh, watch my coat." They'll watch the coat. That was the scenario, right?
Okay, so he's making the bread,
right? So l'chayra, first of all, they're shomer sachar, right? Because in return for, right, he's making the bread, and in return, right, they're getting bread out of watching his coat, right? But now the claim is shmir b'vayla, and he should be putter because
whose coat is it?
The baker's.
Oh, the guy who's baking.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the Gemara says. So Niklaman dar Shiva Bailam Potter, Shmir Bailam's Potter. So Mishumachif said that's why Rav Papa was embarrassed. Elamandam or Chayiv as a machlokes of Shmir Bailam is also you be Chayiv in this case. So you say why would have Rav Papa been embarrassed, right? Rav Papa he ruled right that he's Chayiv. So actually that was not his turn. It was not his turn that day. In other words, it wasn't something that was his rotation. Later D-Day. Right? You go ahead and bake for us. As the payment for me going ahead and bake for you, then go ahead and watch my coat. Right? So adios, top of the page, adios, and before he came from the baking, then it was stolen. Papa, then it came for Papa and Chayvinu, and then he was Mechayiv him. So Amalei Rabban Papa, Shmir B'Ailami, right? It was Shmir B'Ailam. And therefore, in Ichsiv, and over there, that he was Ichsiv because he should have ruled Potter in that case, right? So, that he wasn't over there. He didn't start, and therefore they were Taka Chayiv in that case because it wasn't considered to be Shmir B'Ailami. And Hanu Kitre the Havi Ka Maski Borcha, right? There were two people who were going down the road, Chad Arif Chad Gutza. Right? One was tall, one was short. Arucha Rachi Kamra. So the tall one, he was on top of the donkey, Vahavile Sadina, and he had a nice linen garment, and Gutza Mifsi Sarbala, right? And right, so however, the shorter one, he was wearing a wool coat. He was walking on the ground. So he narrowly got to the river, so he didn't want to go ahead and walk in the river because his coat would go ahead and his wool coat would go ahead and get wet. So what happened? So he took off his coat and he put it on the donkey. And he took the other guy, right? The other guy's linen coat, and he put on himself. And shoved him the sadine, and then the water swept away the linen coat from the guy the tall guy who was riding the donkey. And also made the Rav. They came before Rav. He said he's chayiv. So later, right? It's a case of borrowing. In other words, with the owner being there. In other words, I borrowed his coat, but the owner was there, and he was like working for me by schlepping my wool coat on his donkey. So Rava got embarrassed. So Lasav Naves in the end, Ichsev Milsa the Beloy Daite Shakle Beloy Daite Usfed. And it turns out that basically he took it without his permission. He put his coat on. The fat guy put his wool coat on top of the donkey without permission, and so the other guy's linen coat without permission. Therefore, the whole thing was done without permission. Therefore, that was the reason why he was chayiv. Oh, so went to his donkey to his friend. Summer le chazi. Let the dinar ahead and do not go on the Nar Pakud, because there's water over there. Zil the Narish. Go the Narishish way, right? The Narish way, right? The way there's no water there. Your animal, the donkey, won't get injured. So Azil, of course, what did he do? The Nar Pakud. He went on the place where he was told not to go because there's water there, and the donkey died. However, I did go down that road, but he told me because there was water there, but there was no water there, so therefore I should be punter. Even though he told me not to go there because there's water, and I went there, but there was no water. So I'm like, Rafa, Somali Shak, what reason should I die? He could have just said, hey, I went down the right way and the animal died. So he didn't have to say, hey, I went the other way, and therefore we'll say we should believe him. So yeah. So he said, no, in the case of Mali Shakir, in other words, something where there's something which is able to like similar to witnesses. In other words, whenever there's water, right? And I was having this road with water on it is something that's basically established. And so it's a known thing. So therefore, you can't have Mali Shakir, the svara of why would Elia could claim this. That can't override something that we have a chazaka knowing, right? A chazaka knowing that there's water in this road. So therefore, Mali Shakir does not override the svara of that the fact that there's Adim. It's like Anantzadi that there's water there. And Shamarli Gamarla Hinach Lafanai Shemerchin. A person says, watch it, and he says, okay, put it in front of me and I'll watch it. So Amar Rav Huna says Rav Huna Amarli Hinach Lafanecha. If he says, put it in front of you, right? So I say, Yigal, watch my tefillin, and Yigal says, put it in front of you, right? So then, meaning you're not anything, because you're not saying, put it in front of me, you're saying, put it in front of you, meaning no, right? So
no, you said just put it in front of you.
I say, put it in front of me. I say, can you watch it for me? Right. And you say, put it in front of you. No, you say, put it in front of you. It's a denial.
Oh, right.
No, you're denying it, right?
That's
like it's a denial. It says, "You want me to watch it? Put it in front of you." No, I'm not watching it. So you brother, hinach stomach my. What about you? Says, put it down. So does it mean put it down in front of me, i.e., I'll watch it, or does it mean put it down in front of you? I'm not watching it. Which one is it? Just put it down. Stop. Hinach stam my. So tosh ma'kel is shamali v'amerlo hinach lafanai shamerchina. So only our Mishnah says if he says put it down in front of me.
Right.
It's acceptance of the Shmira. Mashma, that if I just do it, stop, there's no acceptance. But the case that no, where it doesn't work, it says put it down in front of you. That's denial of shmira, mashma, right? They don't just say put it down. They would be shomer. Rather, from this you can't go ahead and learn out. So one final thing: if a person goes ahead and puts in someone else's yard with permission. So Baal Chatzar Chayiv. In other words, then the owner of the yard is Chayiv in case something happens. I said, okay, put it in my yard, right? Then in Paras Chatzar, Rabbi Yomer, Bekulam, Eino Chayiv, Ad Shikabalav, Balabayis Lishmor. And not he just says, put it down in my yard. And I was, he has to say, put it in my yard, and I'm responsible. He has to throw that in. So Gar says, maybe it's the same method. I guess the Gar says, no, Mimai, who says the same thing. Only over there, the Rabbanan say, that the Baal Chatzar Chayiv because a yard is washed. When he says put it in because it's a guarded area, therefore he says I'll watch it for you. But over here it's a shuk, it's not a washed place, and therefore it's anach vatir natir l'chal kamer. When it says put it down, and maybe it means put it down for you to watch, not for me to watch. Inami, or you can say this ad kan like Rabbi Hassam el b'chatzer. Only over there, Rabbi says until he's makabel shmira. That's why. Right, the aisle because over there you need permission to put it in something else's yard. Right, when he tells him to go ahead and put it in the yard, it means even entire luchal kamarle. He says, yeah, you can put it in my yard, watching it. But over here, so he not better to kamarle. But he says over there, put it down on the ground in the shuk. Right, it means I will guard it. Why? These entire kamarle. He's telling him, hey, you put it on the ground and you watch it. See, that's with the Rishus and boy the Mishkaminei. Why does he need Rishus to go ahead and put it on the ground of the market, of the shuk? He doesn't. So obviously, maybe in that case, when he says put it down, in the case of the yard, that means I'll watch it. But if you say put it down in the public, it means that there's no other reason for me to say put it down, unless it means put it down, I will go ahead and watch it for you. All right, we'll stop here.
Good.
So tomorrow, I will not be here tomorrow.
Oh man.
We have time for a couple of days.
Are you going to work again?
No. I'm going to be in Europe.
In Europe?
Yeah.